But make-believe came true in a fairy tale shared by the entire world. Her name was Grace Kelly. It became Her Serene Highness Princess Grace of Monaco.
Did you know that Grace Kelly, the Hollywood star who became Princess of Monaco, was known as the woman whose beauty transformed the tiny principality into a global emblem of glamour and luxury? Yes, you heard me right. Yet behind that flawless image lived a woman far more complex than the world ever cared to acknowledge. So let's be clear, there is no Monaco without Grace Kelly. She epitomizes le rocher. She is la principalité.
Harry, you've got to tell me about those bridges.
I had to face those bridges too.
Grace Kelly for the country girl.
But people didn't want the truth. They wanted the fairy tale, they wanted the dream. Grace Kelly was adored, but she was rarely seen. And that is the tragedy of her life. Across the world, she is remembered as Grace Kelly, the Hollywood superstar. She was a symbol of elegance, poise, and cinematic perfection. But beneath this iconic exterior existed a woman shaped by ambition, pressure, and a lifelong battle between people's expectations and her own authenticity. Grace Kelly rose to fame in the early 1950s, a time when Hollywood was controlled entirely by men. Men wrote the scripts, men assigned the roles, they designed the images and decided which women would rise as the good girl, the dumb blonde, or the sex object, as though women were not real human beings, but merely dolls to be played with. Grace Kelly played the serene blonde heroine, and she embodied restraint and purity. Yet privately, she was much more complex. She was intelligent, sensual, and emotionally intense. Her life behind the scenes did not match the good girl persona Hollywood forced onto her.
Jack Kelly's father was a bricklayer from Ireland who went on to make a fortune. Young Jack soon joined the family business, construction and brickmaking. He started his own business and made his own fortune, but he always professed pride in his family's humble origins. Margaret Major, who married Jack, had been a model as well as a champion swimmer and athlete. Margaret and Jack were determined to raise their children their own way. If you're good enough, you're sure to reach the top. It was drilled into the Kelly children from their earliest years.
Grace, when she was young, was very shy and a mama's baby. There are many times that we have pictures taken that mother had to lean back away from the camera so Grace would not cry, be taken away from her mother. We were a competitive family. I know we got that from our mother and our father. They instilled into us a deep sense of competition, the love of sports, the thrill of winning.
There never was a better drill master than Jack Kelly. For Grace, growing up wealthy meant winter sport in Lake Placid. It also meant the best private schools.
Father believed absolutely that Peggy, the older sister, was going to make the big star of the family and succeed. And he never paid any attention to Grace, who was in the middle of the family, these four children. Grace, he just accepted.
One wonders when you don't get from a parent what it is perhaps you need, if that isn't what creates a great deal of the drive in you.
Her relationship with her father was a deep wound. John Kelly openly favored her older sister, Peggy, calling her the true star of the family. Grace grew up performing for his approval.
I met Grace Kelly early in her career back in 1950 when I was directing Danger for CBS television. When the rehearsal was over, I heard her mother say, "Darling, your speech is affected a little bit. Can you kind of make it more natural?" And she said, "Mother, I'm working on it."
A performance that followed her into Hollywood and later on into royalty. In the industry, she acted alongside powerful men like Cary Grant, Clark Gable, and James Stewart. Her chemistry with them fueled rumors. Some were exaggerated, some were whispered. Actually, none of them was ever publicly confirmed. But these stories shaped the perception of her by the public as a woman accused by jealous peers of being a homewrecker, even though she may have simply been navigating a system where men held all the power. Women who knew her, Ingrid Bergman, Nava Gardner, etc., understood that Grace carried a quiet intensity.
I'm delighted. We have so much cake. What is your name, dear? Oh, it sounds like a medieval saint who was burned to death.
On the outside, she followed the rules, yet she had a rebellious core, something that she was never allowed to express publicly. Directors adored her, particularly Alfred Hitchcock, who saw in her what few could articulate, the dual energy of the perfect ice princess, which is on the surface, while being somewhat like a wildfire on the inside.
He arrived. She appeared on the covers of national magazines.
Then came Monaco, the role of a lifetime, a role she played to perfection.
Monaco, a principality of less than 500 acres on the French Riviera. To the world, this place was known as a playground for the wealthy, who came to enjoy its beauty and its gambling. Monaco became the home of the young American actress who arrived in 1956 to be its princess.
When she met Prince Rainier III, the world fell in love with the story. An actress becoming a princess, a palace overlooking the Mediterranean. The fairy tale was complete. But royalty came with rules of silence, discipline, and composure. The performance became permanent. And because she embodied it so flawlessly, we will never truly know who she was on the inside, what she desired, what she feared, whether she was ever fully fulfilled. Still, her beauty is everywhere, and you can feel her elegance and her presence everywhere in the streets of Monte Carlo, the casino, the palace. All of that ensured Monaco's reputation as the playground of today's world elite. Grace Kelly didn't just marry into Monaco, she redefined it. Even her perfume story revealed the tension omnipresent in her life. For the royal wedding, a scent was selected for her. It was a delicate, white floral composition built around tuberose. It was apparently commissioned by the prince as a romantic gesture to his future bride to reflect the persona the world wanted her to embody.
Grace Kelly, and she of course was a movie star that went on to marry into royalty, becoming the Princess of Monaco. Incredibly famous wedding. So this was probably the biggest celebrity wedding of the time. So she wore Creed Florissimo down the aisle, and this is very well known, and this definitely is still talked about and known. It has tuberose in, but this has a lot of powdery violet notes in, and iris as well. So this is a heavy floral bouquet, but mainly tuberose rather than rose, even though there is a bit of rose in, and very powdery with a powdery violet.
A nice princess who is poised, quiet, and sophisticated. In today's world, we would not call that gesture romantic. We would call it control. However, we also know that royalty has its own rules.
What fragrance did Grace Kelly wear? Grace Kelly is famously associated with the fragrance Creed Florissimo. This fragrance was specifically created for her wedding to the Prince of Monaco in 1956. Her husband, the prince, wanted this fragrance specifically formulated to smell like her wedding bouquet. It has notes of bergamot, tuberose, Florentine iris, and Bulgarian rose.
Now about tuberose. You probably either don't know the name of that flower, or if you know it, you don't know that it is actually one of the most spiritually charged flowers to ever exist. It carries the rebellious sensual awakening of a woman. So it symbolizes sensuality, being center stage, the embodiment of being seen publicly. Such a paradox, right? For a flower representing rebellious desire given to a woman who was forced to suppress hers. And this is actually why I chose tuberose as one of the main characters of Self-Obsession, one of the energy perfume sets in my signature collection. When spiritually activated, tuberose carries the dark feminine energy of unapologetic success and embodied forbidden sensuality. If you're not new to my channel, you know that I come from an ancestral lineage of spiritual women tantric healers who devoted their lives to the awakening and protection of sexual energy for women, but also aura elevation and using scent, sacred scent, as a tool of alchemy transformation. Perfume began as a form of energy work, not as a superficial commercial product. But even women like Grace Kelly were not allowed to choose perfume for themselves. Royal protocol dictated her scent. Her fragrance was part of the role. And today, many women do the same thing without realizing it. They choose perfumes to get compliments, to fit in, to follow trends, instead of a perfume that supports their energy, their sensual elevation, and their emotional journey. And it is shocking that women are still so brainwashed that they don't rebel about the fact that the fragrance industry remains dominated by men who, to this day, are still the masters deciding how femininity should smell like. And this is why I created my signature collection of energy perfumes. I create my energy perfumes to help women stop performing and start becoming, to reconnect them with the truth of their feminine energy, their sensual power, and their inner clarity. This is perfume as transformation, not as marketing. I craft them by hand for you, and I infuse every note with the spiritual purpose perfume originally carried. I use real crushed diamonds because diamonds magnify intention, they strengthen emotional energy, they elevate feminine radiance. And inside my perfumes, the vibration of diamonds supports a woman to rise into her highest expression, not into a character, not into an image that makes her lost in an ever superficial and demanding society. These are not your typical high-end, mass-produced perfumes. They are unique creations. Perfumes that show women a dimension of scent they didn't know existed. And let's be honest, most of you have never experienced perfume that interact with your aura, right? That's why I created Self-Obsession, to change that. In a modern world overwhelmed by imitation, my signature collection realigns perfume with its original purpose, inner feminine power rather than external approval. If what I shared today resonates with you and you feel called to experience perfume as alchemy, as energy, and feminine elevation, visit my website and explore Self-Obsession. All links are in the description box below this video. As always, I wish you to linger in lavish imperial opulence. I love you and I see you in my next video. Bye.